Industrial Cyber Weekly Roundup. I'm Bailey, your host. This has been the 7th week of 2023, so let's delve into some of the latest developments in the industrial cybersecurity sector. The S423 event drew focus on women in ICS security. Although women make up more than half the global population and a majority of those enrolled in college, only 12% of the cybersecurity community is made up of women, highlighting an urgent need to increase the representation of women in these fields. Though it is often difficult for women to enter and thrive in the male-dominated and sometimes intentionally or unintentionally discriminatory ICS security field. The S4 event works on changing this situation out of fairness, with an eye to benefiting women. Looking at it pragmatically, by sheer numbers, women may represent the best chance to deal with the shortage of ICS security professionals needed to create and secure the future. Industrial Cyber reached out to panelists on S423's Women in ICS Security Career Building panel and social event to gather their insights, as the need for greater representation of women in ICS cybersecurity remains in focus. In the second part of Industrial Cyber's Hall of Fame series, featuring in-depth interviews with veterans from the industrial cybersecurity industry, we highlighted the contribution by Eric Byers, founder and chief technical officer at Adolis Technology, to the field of ICS, SCADA, and IIoT cybersecurity. Backed by several years of experience in controls engineering, security research, and corporate management, Byers has, over his vast profession in the industry, integrated deep technical knowledge and practical field experience with business expertise. Inventor of the Tofino security technology, a widely deployed ICS-specific firewall, Byers founded the British Columbia Institute of Technology Critical Infrastructure Security Center. The US CISA, NSA, and the FBI joined with the Department of Health and Human Services and the Republic of Korea's Defense Security Agency and National Intelligence Service to publish Thursday a joint cybersecurity advisory that highlighted that the ransomware attacks on critical infrastructure fund malicious cyber activities executed by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The agencies further revealed that DPRK cyber hackers have been using cryptocurrency generated through illicit cybercrime activities to procure infrastructures such as IP addresses and domains. The ENISA and the CERT of the EU institutions, bodies, and agencies jointly published a report to alert on sustained activity by particular APT hacker groups, known as APT27, APT30, APT31, Key3 Chang, Gallium, and Mustang Panda. These threat groups have been recently conducting malicious cyber activities against businesses and governments in the Union. The report comes as cyber attacks and malicious activities by hackers have been identified as major risks to the EU. 7 Russian cybercriminals were sanctioned by the UK and US authorities in the first wave of new coordinated action against international cybercrime. These hackers are part of the Russia-based cybercrime Trickbot group and have been associated with the development or deployment of a range of ransomware strains which have targeted critical infrastructure, including hospitals and medical facilities during a global pandemic in both the US and the UK. Forescout Technologies Beta Ray Labs disclosed research on deep lateral movement, looking into how attackers can move between devices and access OT networks at the controller or L1 level. It details how attackers can cross security perimeters in interfaced basic process control systems / safety instrumented systems and architectures, or perform detailed manipulation of equipment in field bus networks nested behind PLCs. The move bypasses functional and safety constraints that would otherwise prohibit cyber-physical attacks with the most serious consequences. Dragos announced that 2022 saw a breakthrough in escalation capabilities by a new modular ICS malware, Pipedream, developed by the Chernovite threat group. The Pipedream toolkit has the capabilities that led to the initial cross-industry disruptive destructive ICS-OT malware, impacting tens of thousands of industrial devices that control critical infrastructure. Dragos also assesses that Chernovite represents the most dangerous threat group to date, as it exhibits all aspects of the ICS kill chain Stage 1 and Stage 2. Data released by Dragos disclosed that ransomware attacks on industrial infrastructure organizations nearly doubled in 2022, with over 70% of all ransomware activity focused on manufacturing. Hackers also continue to broadly target many manufacturing sectors and subsectors. As ransomware activity increases, it results in more risk for OT networks, particularly networks with poor segmentation. Clarity released data this week disclosing a second straight decline in the number of published vulnerabilities in cyber-physical systems since hitting a peak during the second half of 2021. Vulnerabilities found by internal research and product security teams have increased by 80% over the same time period, indicating that vendors are increasing their investments in cyber-physical system security and improving the posture of their products and product security programs. SynSaber found that the number of CVEs reported via ICS advisories has increased yearly. The growing volume of reported vulnerabilities highlights continued efforts to secure the ICS systems critical to the nation's energy, manufacturing, water, and transportation infrastructure. The data also pointed out that the growing focus and regulation come with additional administration and reporting requirements for an already overstretched ICS workforce. Owners and operators in critical infrastructure are being asked to analyze, mitigate, and report on new and existing vulnerabilities. Sentinel Labs found a new threat cluster that it tracks as WIP26, which has been identified to target telecommunication providers in the Middle East. Assessed as espionage-related, WIP26 relies heavily on public cloud infrastructure in an attempt to evade detection by making malicious traffic look legitimate. The group has been characterized by abusing public cloud infrastructure for malware delivery, data exfiltration, and C2 purposes. It also involves the use of backdoors, which abuse the Microsoft 365 Mail and Google Firebase services. ASEC researchers provided details of Dalbit Group that has typically relied on open-source tools and lacked any distinct characteristics to profile them due to the lack of PDB information. Additionally, the amount of information that could be collected was limited, unless the affected Korean companies specifically asked for an investigation, since the threat actor's C2 server abused the servers of the Korean companies. 1898 & Company announced its Managed Threat Protection and Response capability to strengthen cybersecurity across critical infrastructure environments. The service maps the company's OT and ICS cybersecurity specialization into OT-focused managed security services. It uses intelligence enrichment and insights gained from collective defense information sharing and leverages various indicators and tactics, techniques, and procedures to provide 24/7 threat monitoring and detection. Darktrace released the availability of its Darktrace Prevent OT product that identifies the paths adversaries may take to attempt to disrupt the operations of critical infrastructure. The approach deploys AI to think like an attacker to visualize pathways within IT and OT infrastructures that lead to critical infrastructure assets, empowering defenders to harden environments and stay steps ahead of the adversary. Well, it was certainly an eventful week in the industrial cybersecurity industry. Do visit industrialcyber.co for in-depth stories, industry news and events, and related resources. See you next week.